Hello, everybody. Charles from GMAT Ninja here. Welcome to our 2026 live video on the 7 biggest verbal score killers. I'll be totally honest with you, when we set up the title for this video, I wasn't sure where I was going with it. It might be 7, might be 9, might be 5. Turns out I've got 7 teed up. If you're watching this live, please chatter at me. I'm happy to treat this a little bit as a live Q&A, AMA, whatever you want to call it. So if you have specific questions, fire away in the chat. Now, this video is not meant to stand alone as your biggest source of prep for verbal. It's kind of a companion to everything else we do. The 7 score killers I'm going to take you through are not in any particular order, to be honest. They're in order in the sense that I want to give you some examples, want to break it up a little bit. So I've got a few questions I have teed up that I'll throw at you. Some of them a little bit stylized, not necessarily exactly like an official GMAT question, but I think make points that really cut to the heart of what people screw up on verbal. So what this is really about is verbal sometimes feels like one thing. Hey, I'm reading. Critical reasoning feels like a whole bunch of logic. Okay, right. But what are the things that you might be doing that undermine you? So that's what we're going to focus on. 7 things, going to be all over the place. I might even argue that the 7th one is the most important for a lot of you. So stay tuned for that, I guess. All right. With that, what I want to start with, so first thing that I see killing scores on verbal, bad time management habits. Before I launch into that and how you should manage time on verbal or how you should think about managing time on verbal, what I want to do is just give you a quick overview of the verbal section, talk about what's in there, how much you're going to save each question. Then we'll launch into the bad time management issues as item number 1, and then we'll go through the 6 other score killers. And as always, live group, fire away if you have questions, anything else you'd like me to address, happy to do it as long as it fits the topic. All right. Here's what you're going to see on the GMAT, on the verbal section. So obviously 45 minutes, this pen is dying. 45 minutes, 23 questions. Here's what's a little frustrating as we start to think about time management. How do those 23 questions break down? Well, for reading comp, you might see 3 passages, you might see 4 passages. And that's going to be 9 to 14 questions total. Each reading comprehension passage could give you either 3 questions or 4. So the minimum you're going to see is 3 reading comp passages with 3 questions each, total of 9 out of your 23, so minority of the section. The most we've ever seen is 4 passages, a couple of which are going to have 4 questions, so for a total of 14. That means that critical reasoning, same range, 9 to 14 questions. Now, the reason I bring that up is sometimes, certainly on previous editions of the GMAT, some people are running around giving advice. Oh, well, you should, since you know that there's 4 reading comp passages, there isn't necessarily, you should do something with reading comp to sort of manage your time accordingly. You can't do that. We don't know if there's 3. We don't know if there's 4. They could appear anywhere in the section. Not that you're going to see all of your reading comp up front and then all of your critical reasoning, but you just don't know. So there's nothing you can do to game this system. There's some variety there, is what it is. So if you hear something where somebody says, oh, well, since you see exactly 3 reading comp passages or exactly 4 reading comp passages or exactly 11 critical reasoning questions, it's garbage. We don't know exactly how many you're going to see. It varies from test to test, from day to day. That's the nature of an adaptive test. So you've got to be a little bit flexible. Now, with that, what's really unfortunate about verbal specifically, I would love to say to you guys, hey, here's a way to optimize your time on verbal. Quant, I can say some things. I'm not going to do that in this video. Quant, we can definitely say some things that I think are really helpful about when to let go of questions. Verbal, here's the problem. You don't know if you're overmatched by a question until you're mostly done with it. You just don't know. There's not much you can do. All you can really do on verbal is go until you can't go anymore and not cut corners. So here's what I see. So as we talk about framing this video, 7 biggest score killers. And yeah, great comment here, Jerry Prep. Facing with verbal, 80% right. But then the last 4 is a guess. Only have 3 minutes, so those last 4 or 5. Yeah, this is not uncommon. So I'm going to talk about what not to do first. Score killers. What should you not do in this situation? Then we'll talk about what you actually can do that might help. Okay. Biggest thing is don't try to cut corners. Don't try to rush through, because what ends up happening, so where do errors come from on verbal? They come from misreading. 75, 80, 85% of the errors we've seen, again, I've been tutoring for about 25 years, it's misreading, it's misinterpreting. Why does that happen? You're cutting a corner. You're reading too quickly. You're jumping ahead to something. You're not thinking structurally. Maybe you're lunging at answer choices. That's where errors come from. So what you don't want to do is try to apply some arbitrary time limitation to things if you're in this situation. Or if you're worried about being in this situation, don't apply some arbitrary time limit. I hear all sorts of gimmicks. Oh, you should read the reading comp passage in 90 seconds or less, or 60 seconds or less. They vary in length. You can't apply something like that. Sometimes I hear people say, hey, I'm going to use benchmarks. 45 minutes, 23 questions. Hey, it's about 2 minutes per question. So what does that mean? Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe at the 5-minute mark, after you've done 5 questions, well, you should have about 35 minutes remaining. You could do something like this and say, hey, I'm going to take that idea of 2 minutes per question. I'm going to make myself a little chart. So this is your question number. So you've got 35 minutes left. You're going to have 25 minutes left here. You could do something like this. Do I like it? I don't really. And here's why. So the reason why is what happens when you start to approach, when you, let's say you get to question 10 and you look at the clock and you say, oh crap, I only have 23 minutes left. That's when I see people panic. They start rushing through and they miss easy questions. Adaptive test, it's the easy questions that kill you. I am not a fan of these benchmarks for verbal. I sometimes see people use them and it helps calm them down. I guess I'm okay with that. Bottom line, timing gimmicks on verbal do not work. They very rarely work. These benchmarks, I guess, can be okay as long as you can kind of shrug it off if you're a little bit behind. The problem on verbal is, yeah, if you just finished a reading, the first question of a reading comp passage is going to take longer. It's going to take quite a bit longer than other questions. So it's really, really hard to stick to something like this, even if you're doing perfectly well. So I'm not a fan. I don't advise benchmarking on verbal. I don't advise listening to any of these gimmicks. Bottom line, all you can do, be systematic, do the best you can on every question that's in front of you. Don't get stuck. If you're down to 2 answer choices, don't spend an eternity going back and forth between those last 2. Look at them 2-3 times, that's it, move on. But that's really all you can do with time management. So score killer number 1, bad time management. And it's really the gimmicks that kill you. So please, if you hear any of those gimmicks, please ignore them. Now, thing number 2. So score killer number 2. Again, where do errors come from on verbal? It's misreading, it's rushing to, it's going a little too fast on something, it's lunging at an answer choice, falling in love with an answer choice, not looking at all 5 answer choices. You'll see us talk about that in all of our videos for verbal in different ways. Now, if you're struggling, and I'm going to come back to the comment, really appreciate this, Jerry Prep. Wait a minute, are you taking the GMAT? Jerry Prep K8E. I appreciate this because, again, a lot of people are in this situation. I don't want you to make the mistake of confusing time management with efficiency. So sometimes when we say time management, we mean ways to manage your time and think about, oh, I'm hitting benchmarks or I'm going to spend a certain amount of time on things. Again, on verbal, they're generally not effective. But in a situation like this, what can you do? Maybe if you're being a little too stubborn when you're down to 2 answer choices, sometimes you've just got to pick something and move on. That might be a little part of the picture. If you're spending 6 minutes on a critical reasoning question, okay, time to let go. More often than not, though, this is about building efficiency, not about some time management trick that's going to save you. It's all about building more efficiency. So what is it that makes you more efficient at verbal, both critical reasoning and reading comp? It's being systematic, having really good structure to what you're doing. I'm not going to rehash that in this video, but if that's something that's unfamiliar to you, go watch some of our videos on reading comp, critical reasoning, either the live series here on GMAT Club or come over to the GMAT Ninja channel. Check out our free course over there. Same general principles. Read with structure, don't overread, don't underread. When you get really good at that, you will become more efficient. And over time, this problem of only having a few minutes for the last few questions, that will get better. And that's really the only thing you can do. And it sucks. It's terrible. I wish I could say, hey, here's your magic trick for saving yourself 5 minutes. But other than don't get stubborn and just get really good at having structure, full energy to everything you do. Critical reasoning, we talk about structure in those videos, reading comp in those videos we talk about, again, not going to rehash it here. That's all you can do is practice that structure, be disciplined, approach the questions the same way every single time. So score killer number 2, no structure. So again, you want to approach questions the same way every time. So critical reasoning, reading comp, you should have the same approach every single time you see those. That's what's going to build your efficiency over time. And again, Jerry Prep K8E, thank you for letting me use you as an example throughout this. Okay. Well, all sorts of great questions coming up here. Okay, here's what I want to do because there's all of a sudden a flurry of questions. Keep them coming, you guys. I love this. What I want to do briefly here. So score killer number 3, this is this is one that sounds a little trivial, but again, adaptive tests like the GMAT, what really hurts you is missing easy questions, questions that are easy for you, making a careless error. You see it on Quant 2, right? When you think about that question where you just made a little arithmetic error, it's crushing, right? And that's what crushes your score. That's what makes you get something that's less than you deserve. It's missing questions that are easy for you. The single most common question type where I see careless errors or errors on easy questions from otherwise very skilled students, it's inferences. So I'm going to introduce this, throw a really, really silly example at you that hopefully will help drive home the point of how I want you to think about them. And then I'll kind of go through some of the questions in the live chat. And again, guys, keep it coming. This is great. It's great to see this stuff. So inference questions. If you are watching this live, and feel free to toss into the chat. I'm curious to hear, what do you think an inference is? So when you see the word inference, which of the following can be inferred from the passage? What do you think? What does that mean? If you're not watching this live, pause and think about it for 20 seconds. Okay, let's call that 20 seconds. What most people say to me when I ask them that question is they say, well, the inference it's something that was not directly stated, right? It's something you have to kind of work for, right? You take the passage, you process it, you think about it, you pull something from it, that's your inference. It is a thing that is not directly stated. That is the correct dictionary definition. It is not the right way to approach it on the GMAT, because what I see happen is people go, okay, well, this answer choice, well, let's say B, that's too obvious. It pretty much said that. That's not really an inference. That's the right answer in that situation. So the way I want you to think about inferences, don't think about that dictionary definition. Not good. What you want to think is, of these 5 answer choices, which one is the most supported? Which of these is the most correct? That's it. Don't worry about whether it was a very simple, obvious restatement or something you maybe had to work for a little bit. Anything in there is fine. What you want to think, though, is which of these 5 is the most supported? I'm going to give you a really, really silly example. I'm going to pop that on the screen now. Take a moment, live group, let me know what you think of it. And in the meantime, I will catch up on all of your comments. And I will get rid of that logo. All right, going to take a quick minute. All right. Obviously, I'm having fun with this one. Very, very silly example here. So yeah, so thank you for this. This is right. Is it true? And the one thing I'd be careful with, not necessarily, I mean, yes, 100% true, but don't get caught up as soon as you go to the place of 100%. It's a little dangerous, because sometimes the right answer, probably less the case on inferences, but often the right answer, critical reasoning, reading comp, especially critical reasoning, it's something where you're like, is this great? Not necessarily. Sometimes it's which of the following is most supported by the passage. Doesn't mean that it's 100% bulletproof. It means it's most supported by the passage. So be careful of absolutes here. But the idea is just, hey, which of these 5 is the most true? Which of the 5 is the most supported? And if your brain starts going, well, if this would be true, then you're in trouble. Now, very, very, obviously very silly example here. And you're probably looking at it going, I wouldn't make the mistake here. Trust me, I see it all the time. I see it on GMAT Club. I see it in YouTube comments. We see it in our private tutoring over and over and over. The people look at the inference and go, hey, okay, the obvious thing can't be right. So on this one, what I see a lot of the time, and again, live group is not having any trouble with this. They'll go, which one can be inferred from the passage? Well, if you invite Chuck to your mother's house for a home cooked meal, he'll accept. Well, come on, that's going too far. We don't know if he would accept an invitation to go eat at your mother's house. I'm guessing he would, but obviously you can't conclude that based just on the fact that he eats a lot, makes good lasagna, legend of global gluttony. Don't know if he'd accept an invite to your mom's house. Who knows where your mom's house even is? Chuck likes to eat. I see a lot of people crossing this out and going, nope, it said that. No, it didn't say that. It said he enthusiastically eats a lot. Is it obvious that he likes food? It's really obvious that he likes to eat. It's really obvious. But a lot of people cross this out. And in this dumb little example, you might say, no, I wouldn't do that. That's so obvious. But so many of you do it. We watch it over and over and over again. Just be careful. This one is clearly supported by the passage. And it's just so obvious you don't want to pick it. Inferences, sometimes the really obvious answer is correct. Don't ignore the obvious answer. Again, a mistake we see over and over again. I don't know if there's any point in going through the rest of these. Do we know anything about whether Chuck is thin or not? He eats a lot. He's probably not thin, but who knows? C's out. D, he hosted a show on the cooking channel. What? Just because the cooking channel called him something doesn't mean he hosted a show there. E, he cooks frequently. We don't know. He makes lasagna. He eats a lot. Maybe he makes really good lasagna once a year. Rest of the time he eats out. Who knows? So very, very obvious thing, but just please, guys, watch out for it. And as you're analyzing your own results, be honest with yourself about where your errors are coming from. So if you see that you're missing inference questions disproportionately, this is probably the reason why, whether it's reading comp or critical reasoning. Okay. I'm going to take a break from 4 more score killers we'll talk about in a minute. I'm going to answer a few more questions from the live group here. So what is coming next in our series? Had a couple questions on that. So are we doing, come on, comment, there we go. Are we starting a quant series after this? Not immediately. So we're filming this end of June 2026, GMAT Ninja Wednesdays. I will be here live doing something, or at least premiering something new every Wednesday. That's the plan until y'all get tired of me. I think we're going to start quant in August is the plan right now. What we're going to do in July, because we're kind of just getting into the teeth of admissions season. Round 1 is not so far away. We're going to do a series with admissions consultants in the month of July, Wednesdays in this same slot, telling their very best admissions stories live. So I've got some people picked out that I think are going to be really fun for this. So we're going to do that through July. August, we're going to start premiering a few podcast episodes that I think you guys are going to enjoy. And then we'll most likely start up a quant series after that. So the quant is coming. There was a question here as well that I am now struggling to find about data insights. Data insights is coming soon too. We will do a full data insights series, most likely after the quant. So starting sometime this fall, 2026. Drew, great to see you. How to improve stamina? Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe two chunks to this answer, maybe 3. Chunk number 1, stamina in general. Just make sure you're doing long focused sets. So you might get some mileage out of using the LSAT for your verbal prep. 25 questions per section, cosmetic differences between the GMAT and the LSAT, but it really does test the same skills. The level of language is harder on the LSAT. Every LSAT section is the same difficulty level roughly. So I think they're really, really good for training stamina. 25 LSAT questions in a row, that's harder than doing 23 GMAT questions on a 45-minute section. Typically, if you can finish the GMAT verbal section on time, that's roughly equivalent to finishing an LSAT set of about 25 questions, critical reasoning or reading comp, in about an hour. They're harder. So that's a really good way to train stamina. So that's thought number 1 specifically for verbal, is I think you might get some mileage out of LSAT. Despite the cosmetic differences, it is harder. Then the idea is you switch back to the GMAT, it's going to feel easier. That's the hope. Okay, that's thought number 1. Thought number 2. A lot of people ignore all of the, we'll say, non-academic elements of preparing for the GMAT. That's actually, spoiler alert, that's going to be what we talk about for score killer number 7, is things that are external to the exam. Sometimes when I meet people who are struggling with stamina on the test, it's you're not sleeping enough, it's you're working too hard, you're doing your prep at the wrong times of day. So if you're a morning person, please study in the morning for an hour or 2. I see people who sit there and study for 8 hours on the weekend, and it just doesn't work. By the time you get to the 3rd, 4th, 5th hour, you're just toast, and you're practicing making errors out of fatigue. So do what you can to optimize your health in other ways. And again, Drew, I've seen you in these live chats, so thank you for being a regular visitor. I obviously don't know anything about your lifestyle, but sometimes when I hear this kind of question, there's something underneath it. The other thing that's possible is something like ADHD. Not uncommon. Obviously, I don't know you, but some people I meet who say, yeah, I'm really struggling to stay focused. Sometimes it's undiagnosed ADHD. That's not uncommon. Last thought on stamina. For some of you, this isn't going to make necessarily the biggest difference, but you might think about optimizing your section order, taking this into account. and again, personal taste, different sections, different people find different sections exhausting. So if stamina is an issue for you, you might want to start your exam with the section that you find the most exhausting or the one that requires the most focus. So for example, if verbal is the one where you really struggle to stay focused, start with verbal while you're fresh. If you feel like you can do, let's say, quant when you're a little bit tired and still be effective, quant goes at the end, for example. So another thing to think about as you get closer to your test date. All right. All right. That is unfortunately a comment breaking across so many. So I thought I'm going to do my best. I can't really show your comment very well on the screen because it is in 3 parts. Scores fluctuating. The short version, there's a lot to the rest of this comment. I'll just kind of tackle the score fluctuations. Assuming that these are all official. So if you're seeing fluctuations like that, that's enough of fluctuation. If it's a point or two, maybe no big deal. If you're seeing score fluctuations that are, 4 points, 79 to 83, that's a lot. That's a pretty big difference. And almost without a doubt on this, there's something going on with your execution. And by the way, as we talk about score killers, yeah, those are the score killers mostly, right? It's more about execution than anything else. Bad time management, using some silly gimmicks in it. We're going to talk about some other things coming up that I think are kind of in the same direction. You're missing questions that are easy for you. Why exactly? And it doesn't take very many. The difference between a 79 and an 83 on verbal or quant or data insights for that matter, it might just be a couple of questions in the wrong spot that were easy for you that you got wrong. So a couple pieces of general advice for people when you're seeing your scores fluctuate, and this could apply to data insights and quant too to some degree. I want you to look for two things. One is, where were the questions that you should have gotten right? Not just, well, if I'd had one more biscuit for breakfast and if I'd remembered this thing that I didn't really know, and there shouldn't be too many ifs in there. It's just, oh my God, I just misread. I wasn't paying attention. I lunged at an answer choice. I did something silly. Count those up every time you do a practice test or a homework set for that matter. Like, that's the biggest metric I want you to pay attention to. Where are the errors that were clearly avoidable? Because my bet is that on that 79, you had, a couple of them, two, 3 of them, something like that. And maybe you had some on the 83 as well, which would be a great sign that your ceiling is higher, but a very, very good chance that you would see more of those on the 79 than on the 83. So that's the thing you want to look for. Where were the questions that make you go, what am I doing? I should have had that. Second thing is, look out for the bad time management. Yeah, the first question of a reading comp passage should take you a while. That's fine. But if you have a critical reasoning question, it took you 4.5 minutes. Okay, you need to learn to let go. I see less of that on verbal than on the other sections, but that's something else to look for. So those are 2 biggest things I want you to look for in your results to help analyze what's going on. Now you've got another thing in here. I felt not focused, had to read again. Yeah, and again, maybe that's the real issue. I wouldn't take the GMAT club difficulty levels too seriously. They're useful, but I wouldn't look at those too closely, even on the official questions, because those aren't necessarily calculated the same way as the real thing. I'm going to talk more about focus towards the end, because that is a huge thing. Several of you have asked about it. So again, score killer number 7 has a lot to do with focus and different things that can cause you to struggle to focus, anxiety being a big one. And especially as you get close to your exam. So how do I push to 85? My hunch for you, Swetha, and again, I don't know, is things that we'll address towards the end of this video that I think might have something to do with, might have something to do with all of this. Okay. Let me I'm seeing more comments. Keep this coming, you guys. This is great. Ooh, great comment. And this is going to bring me to the next question. So Naman Jain, thank you for this. Yeah, inference questions, they can still make them hard on critical reasoning, and we can debate that. And you're right, reading comp, there's more of them. And you still want to, so 2 things I'll say about the reading comp versions. One is, even those inference questions, chances are if you're struggling on inference questions or detail questions on reading comp, it's because you weren't reading with the right structure when you initially read the passage. So you want to anchor yourself. Again, I'm not going to rehash everything we talk about in our reading comp series. Go check those out, GMAT Ninja channel or here on GMAT Club. Reading comp, you're always trying to anchor yourself in purpose, point of view, stopping at the end of every paragraph, or maybe even more frequently than that if it's gigantic paragraphs, and going, Okay, why? What's the argument the author's building? How are these things connected? If you do that, it's going to be a lot easier for you to not just know where to look for the inference, but also just have it in context. It's going to be a lot easier to absorb those, make sense of them, know where to look for them. So sometimes, so if you're missing these questions disproportionately on critical reasoning, I'm sorry, on reading comp, if you're missing inference questions, detailed questions even, it usually still is a problem with your initial reading of the passage. You're not really grasping how this whole thing fits together. Because if you do grasp how the whole passage fits together in terms of purpose, point of view, it's a lot easier to capture those inference questions. Now, with that said, I mean, you're right. Sometimes you got to do a little bit more digging, even if you've done a great job of reading the passage. But again, if you've done a good job of reading the passage, the digging shouldn't be that bad on these inference questions. With that, Naman Jain, thank you for helping me have a nice little segue. Because the next thing I wanted to talk about, item number 4, score killer number 4, intimidation, which actually is a little bit related to what you're saying. It's funny. I back in the day, and again, you guys know I've been teaching for too long. It used to be the case, 10, 15 years ago, we would meet a lot of students who weren't very good readers, right? So we'd meet a lot of non-native speakers who would just struggle to read English at this level. I very rarely see that now, occasionally, but less so. I mean, so if you're watching this, you're probably watching this on YouTube. You're the YouTube generation. So even the non-native speakers, most of you speak fantastic English, read at a really high level. And you don't have to read at a crazy high level on the GMAT. Like the level of language isn't that hard. But here's what I do see, not just from non-native speakers. I'll focus on non-native speakers for a moment. It's getting intimidated by language. And you see something you don't know and you go, ah, and you kind of freak out and you lose your structure and you lose that systematicness. It's a systematicness that pays off on verbal. So the intimidation comes in a whole lot of different flavors. It might be you see a topic you're unfamiliar with, native speaker or not, and you go, well, crap, I don't know about this. It might be that you see a long passage. Hey, nothing on the GMAT requires any prior knowledge of anything. So I'm about to throw a passage at you that has to do with chemistry. I know nothing about chemistry. I took 2 years of chemistry in high school. I don't remember a thing. So I don't know what's going on in this passage, but I can still answer the question. That's how GMAT questions are written. So lots of sources of intimidation, big words, specific vocabulary, topics that are unfamiliar, walls of text, large passages. Please don't let that happen. Really pay attention if there's something in your head where you're going, oh my God, there's too much here and I can't get through it. I want you to listen to that voice and say, no, it's going to be the same. Everything is meant to be like, over the course of your section. It is doable to finish this section in 45 minutes. Some questions will be longer than others. That's okay. If it's a really long passage, that's okay. You're going to make up for it on the questions. It's okay. Don't get intimidated by that stuff. Don't get intimidated by unfamiliar topics. No prior knowledge is ever, ever, ever needed. These questions are tested really carefully. With that, I'm going to throw an example at you. And it's chemistry, and I know nothing about chemistry. So this, by the way, you guys, it's reading comp. I just pulled a chunk of it because I didn't want to take the time to go through a whole passage. But I just pulled a little piece of a reading comp passage. Go ahead and take a look. Another inference question. And live group, as always, let me know as soon as you have an answer. All right, live group, feel free to keep your thoughts coming on this. Reason I picked this particular question, oops. Again, I pulled it out of context. So this is I'm being a little unfair, right? So it's a reading comp passage, 3 paragraphs. I pulled a paragraph out and even trimmed some stuff out of it. I don't know about you guys, but if you have a chemistry background, you might look at this and go, well, hey, this is easy. I know exactly what they're saying here, no problem. If you're like me, you don't really have a chemistry background, or you're just not smart enough to remember any of the chemistry you learned in high school, even though my chemistry teacher was awesome. Like, he was great. He was such a good dude. I think he was a great teacher. I did great on my exams. I don't think I understood anything. Anyway, I look at this and go, well, poop. Ideal gas law, I don't know what that is. A relation? Relation? Is that it's like an equation? I guess that's an equation. I don't know. Reactions? Well, that's a reaction system. Kinetic theory. I don't know what kinetic theory is. So whenever, again, this might be a topic that's comfortable for you. If you're watching this, might be a topic that's uncomfortable for you. Odds are good that you will eventually see a topic that's uncomfortable or some language that's uncomfortable for you on the GMAT. Don't get intimidated, because whatever it is, like, I don't need to know any of this stuff, and we can prove it, right? So which of the following can most reasonably be inferred from the passage? Some results that differed from prediction were treated as experimental irregularities rather than examined further. Okay, well, that's kind of the last sentence, right? So in kinetic theory, et cetera, in some cases, results that diverged from prediction were set aside, were attributed to experimental error without. Okay, looks like A can be inferred from this. I'm going to keep A. Great. And again, how much more am I going to need to know? Do I understand this? I don't really feel like I understand it super well. Hey, there's this gas law. It's a relation, an equation. Okay, fine. And then here's some exceptions to it, I guess. Here's some cases where it doesn't hold very well. All right. B, discrepancies between the ideal gas law and observed behavior were generally regarded as too minor to affect practical applications. I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's nothing here about it being too minor, right? So they're doing empirical adjustments. They're setting things aside. So it seems like it affects things. There's certainly nothing that supports the idea that they were too minor. Oops, I meant to keep A. So A is super obvious, looks good. B's out. C, empirical corrections became more common only after experiments under extreme conditions revealed substantial deviations from prediction. I don't see anything here about experiments under extreme conditions. There's none of that. And we've got reaction systems and kinetic theory. I don't know what those are, but we're not talking about extreme conditions here at all. C's out. D, researchers working in kinetic theory were less willing than industrial engineers to tolerate inconsistencies. I mean, it seems like they were setting aside some of the things that were inconsistencies, but we don't compare them to industrial engineers here at all. So I can get rid of D. That's not supported. E, observed phase transitions. I don't know what that means. I kind of do, but let's pretend I don't know what that means. Led many physicists to abandon the ideal gas law in favor. There's nothing about anybody abandoning the ideal gas law. There's nothing about phase transitions. E's out, A's our winner. Notice I don't have to understand anything here. A lot of this can be a mind game. Again, maybe not the best example for all of you. If you know chemistry, great. If you don't know chemistry, yeah, you don't need to know anything about it. Don't let yourself get intimidated. That's when I see structure fall apart, is when people say, hey, I don't know this topic. Hey, there's some big words here. Hey, there's some specific vocabulary. Don't let that happen. Do everything the same way every single time. And that way you won't beat yourself. They're not going to beat you with jargon. That won't happen. They might include some jargon that's specific, but you have to beat yourself. The jargon will not be central to the conversation. It will either be defined or ignorable every single time. Big words as well. Like, if you struggle a little bit with vocabulary, it's very, very rarely going to cost you a question unless psychologically you let it. So don't let any of that cost you a question. Okay. Seeing some great questions in here. Yeah. Bold faith. Great question here, Taha. So again, happy to answer anything. I've got 3 more things I want to get through before the hour's up. Tend to spend more time, often more than 3 minutes, on boldface, but your time's okay on the others. Is that typical? Real indication of more practice? Yeah, this is a good question, and I can say this. I know for a fact, speaking to the people who designed the GMAT, that they. So we know that some questions will, on average, take longer than others. Makes sense, right? And I'm not saying by question type, I'm just saying in general. Some questions are going to take more time for most test takers. Over the course of your test section, they will balance those out. You will see some questions that take a little longer, You'll see some questions that are a little bit shorter. They try to balance that so the timing is broadly fair for everybody. So are there some boldface questions that I think should take 3 minutes, or I think it's acceptable or normal for them to take 3 minutes? For sure. And Taha, if memory serves, I think you were with us for when we did the live video on boldface questions. Some of those are beasts, man. I mean, some of those are awful, and some of them will take you 3 minutes. I get nervous, a little bit nervous, if it's something that you're seeing and it's a consistent average. It makes me wonder if there's something about your approach that isn't totally locked down. I'm wondering if you're being totally efficient. And again, you can review some of what we said in those videos to kind of look at, well, how should you approach boldface? Maybe your approach is a little bit loose, but fundamentally, yeah, some of those are really long, and I wouldn't overreact to that. As long as on average, your performance is good enough, I wouldn't overreact to it, but I would spend a little bit of time thinking whenever you have one question type or whatever, where you feel like your times are bloated, really take a good look at your process and go, am I really doing that, or am I doing something different? So on boldface, we always talk about ignore the bold at first. Think about the structure of the passage. And then once you're anchored in the conclusion or hypothesis or whatever's in that passage, then figure out the role of the bold. It's possible you're not doing that as sharply as you could. I would take a look at that and be really honest with yourself. Is your process locked down? That might be bloating the times. It could also just be that some of these are beasts. So don't overreact to it, but take a look. Yeah, Ravanth, great to see you here too. Start with the weakest section first, get the better score. Section order, we could say a lot about it. I'm not going to say a ton here. I think it's more about personal taste. So personally, I want to get the thing out of, this is my personal taste. The thing that I find the most exhausting, I like to get out of the way. Not necessarily my weakest section, but the thing where I need most of my focus. Now, somebody else might say, no, I want to do the opposite because I need that first section to warm up. So somebody who maybe is kind of worried about the same thing. My primary worry is stamina, let's say on verbal, and that's my primary worry with an individual section. I want it first. Somebody else might say, no, quant first, for example, because I'm comfortable on quant, I get warmed up, and then second section verbal, that's when I'm at my peak. So it's all very personal. So it's not about starting with weakest or strongest necessarily. So penalty is low. I don't know what you mean by the DI is a newer section, penalty is low compared to the other two. That's not. I think you might be thinking of the idea that your performance on one section affects the starting point of the next. I would put that totally out of your head. It's not really going to affect your score in the long run. I would just think in terms of how are you the most comfortable performing? That's how you should think about section order. So if you think you will do best on your weakest section if it's first, do it first. If you think you would do best on your weakest section when it's last, do it last. Think in terms of your own performance, your own sharpness, your own comfort. Any of this business of, oh, well, I'm going to do my worst or my best first, put that out of your head because that doesn't really affect your score very much. None of that really does. Okay. Doing my best to get to all of these. I think we've addressed a lot of the stuff on section order here. Okay, I'm going to hit item number 5 here, and then we will try to catch a couple more of these questions. Number 5. I'll put it this way. Bad paraphrasing. Not paragraphing, paraphrasing. Okay, what do I mean by that? Where do errors come from? Critical reasoning, reading comp, both. It's when you hallucinate, you misread, you misinterpret something. It's not logic. A lot of people just study question types until they're blue in the face. It's 20% of the mistakes, 25%, 15 maybe. It's not about logic. Yes, there's logic in there. You have to think logically, but it's not, I'm going to go memorize a bunch of logic. It's not that. Your errors are coming from there was something you misread, you misinterpreted over and over and over. Again, that's what we've seen over the years, one-on-one with students, people who interact with, GMAT Club, YouTube, wherever, over and over. Critical reasoning. Now, this feels a little different on reading comp versus critical reasoning, but critical reasoning, the thing that as you watch our videos, we try to beat into your heads. Their words are yours. Their words are yours. Make sure it's the author's words, not yours. Don't put words in the author's mouth. Now, reading comp, yeah, you're synthesizing this mound of text, right? So sometimes you do have to paraphrase a little bit to make sense of it. Just be careful. Make sure that you're not warping the author's words and turning it into something that it isn't. And it sounds really dumb and it sounds really uninteresting. But as you're analyzing your results, so if you're watching this and going, hey, I've watched a bunch of videos, I've done a course, whatever it is you've done so far, and you're going, my score's still frustrating. As you analyze your results, practice tests, homework, whatever you're using, why don't you ask yourself the question, how did I miss this? did I was the writing too hard for me? Or did I do something where I turned the author's words into something they weren't? That's the most common error by far on the GMAT. Pay attention to it if that's what you're making. And again, it's not where people want to focus. Oh, I'm missing a lot of assumption questions. That's where our brains want to go. I'm going to learn more logic. That's where our brains want to go. Usually not the problem, putting words in the author's mouth. So pay attention, please, 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 when you analyze your results, really pay attention when you're doing that. It is the single biggest score killer by far. Okay. Well, it was interesting. I'm not sure if I'm interpreting this question correctly, but let me throw this out there. Problems with other options as they are so weird, vague that you. Okay, I think you're referring back, Naman, please yell at me if this is wrong. I think you're referring back to this thing. Okay, so we have some, again, I pulled this out of context to be fair. So stylized, this is from a reading comp passage. So when they're so weird and vague that you get confused, that sounds more psychological than anything, right? Because either it's supported or it isn't. There shouldn't be anything to get confused about. I mean, being a little silly here, but there's some truth to it. Reading just this snippet of the passage, I didn't fully understand a couple of those answer choices. But I can still look at the passage and go, there's nothing about it there. There just isn't. It's just not there. So it doesn't really matter where the right answer appears. If it's not supported, it's not supported. Don't second guess that. It's supported or it isn't. A was supported. The others are not. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. I think sometimes you can get in your head and go, oh, well, maybe it was there and I just didn't see it. Maybe, but A was there and I saw it. The other ones, I can look at the passage. They're just not there. So don't overcomplicate that. And that's, you can think of kind of, and again, Naman, apologies for mispronunciations, by the way. I'm taking your comment for a walk. I don't know if this is quite what you intend, but what I do see people doing here sometimes is a form of intimidation, where you start second guessing answers, and it's like, hey, keep it simple. Which one's supported? A. Which ones are not supported? Any of the others? Do I understand them? Does it matter? I don't really understand them necessarily, but they're wrong. So don't get in your head about it. They're not trying to play tricks on you, right? They're just trying to ask you a question. Which one is supported? That's it. So try not to let your brain do the other things where it's like, well, what if it was there and I just didn't see it? It's there, it's not. Look, do you see it? No? Okay, move on. Yeah, great question. So what do you do when you are running out of official guide questions? This is where I am a fan of the LSATs. And Naman, thank you for responding as well in the chat. The caveat about LSATs, again, I've said it in many of these videos, they're harder, but they're really consistent. So every LSAT reading comp section, every critical reasoning section, LSAT calls it logical reasoning, same basic skills as the GMAT, 25-ish questions per section, should take you about an hour on GMAT timing. Ignore the LSAT's 35-minute limit. They're hard, but they're also consistent. Your performance should be consistent every single time. So if you get -9 one day and -2 the next, you're doing something different. There's a process issue, there's a technique issue, focus issue, something. So you can really get a lot of mileage out of that as far as really understanding yourself. They're going to be a beatdown? Yep, they hurt, but they're great. They can be great practice. You could also use older versions of official guides. Go find an old edition on Amazon or whatever. Critical reasoning and reading comprehension have not changed. Structure of the sections changed. The questions themselves, passages, same as they've been for decades. Okay. Nudging you for your wrong choices. As long as it helps. Okay, I'm sorry about my voice in your heads, guys. That makes me feel bad. Okay. Great question here. Do you need to know the meaning of all of these options? Author's attitude towards existing buildings. It was indifference, approval, nostalgia, and so on. Author's attitude questions are rare on the GMAT. They exist. If I wasn't doing this live, I could tell you the numbers based on analysis of the official guide. I've got all that. But we're talking about a very, very small single digit, 2 or 3% of questions off the top of my head. It's pretty rare on the GMAT. But again, don't get intimidated by it. I think they feel very different than a lot of other questions. But if you've really done your work, again, I keep beating the drum of thinking structurally when you reading comp, critical reasoning, both those things. If you're doing that and you're really drilling into the author's purpose every step of the way, point of view, what's the purpose? really connecting ideas from one paragraph to the next. The attitude is a pretty close cousin to primary purpose. Not exactly, but it's pretty close cousin. So if you've done a really good job of reading it, these shouldn't be so bad for you. And again, pretty rare on the GMAT. Don't get it. They don't require any special training because they are so rare on the GMAT. And also because if you can nail that primary purpose and you're really dialed in a point of view the way we train you in all of our reading comp videos, the attitude question should be fine too. Okay. Yeah, great questions. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate this today. Just because we're getting a little low on time, let me get to my final 2 score killers. We said 7 score killers. I'd feel really bad if we had to stop at 5. So let me get through these last couple. Do we want to go through a question? I'm not so sure, but let me give you number 6. I will talk about it in broad strokes. Time permitting, we might circle back to an example of it. So word matching is the term I like to use. Sometimes people call it eye matching. And we do have a really good video on that on the GMAT Ninja channel, and it's something I address in a lot of the live videos here at GMAT Club. This idea that if you don't see a word that you recognize, well, hey, the answer choice didn't, so critical reasoning in particular, you might say, well, the passage didn't talk about this thing. And then let's say it's a strengthened question or a weakened question, which, by the way, appear on Reading Comp 2. You'll see strengthened, weakened questions about 3, 4, 5% of the time. So something like a strengthened, weakened question, for example, I'll see people say, well, but the passage didn't talk about that. Right, but if you're strengthening an argument, it could be something that comes from the outside that comes in and strengthens it. There's no reason why that couldn't be the case. So where I see people make mistakes is on a question that's logical, which the following strengthens, or what's a necessary assumption, or something like that. You can't just go looking for words that match. You have to think about what the answer choice does, not whether it contains certain words you want to see. So very, very common mistake we see, something we address, again, in our live series here on GMAT Club, comes up quite a bit. I've got an example teed up. I don't think I'm going to get to it because I want to answer some of your questions. And if we go through that example, we'll run out of time. But really, really common thing. And whenever you hear yourself saying, again, how do you analyze your results? How can you learn to diagnose your own weaknesses? One thing is you're looking at some of these questions and you say, what? The answer was B, but the passage didn't say anything about that. Okay, that's a sign that you're word matching instead of like doing the deeper thinking to say, what would this do? Would this strengthen? That's different than, do I recognize the words? Did the words appear in the passage? Extremely common error. And again, for a deeper dive on that, it was Branson. One of our tutors did a really good video on that. Come on over to the GMAT Ninja channel and you'll see a full video on that whole idea of word matching and just looking for things that match. That's not thinking. That's not verbal reasoning. So again, think about what the section is called. It's not reading, right? It's verbal reasoning. And we can sit here and say that's pretentious, and maybe it is, but what are they asking you to do? They're asking you to do certain tasks with the text, not just understand it. So yes, understand it, but then in a lot of cases, strengthen something, weaken something, give a reason why the plan will achieve its goal, whatever it might be. If you're just matching words and you catch yourself going, but it didn't mention this, and you're discarding the right answer because it didn't say that, you're word matching. So keep an eye on that. If that seems to be an issue for you. All right. Yeah. Yeah, these are great. Really appreciate this. Yeah, please pause after every paragraph and reading comp process. Think about what you've just read. Think about point of view. Think about the author's purpose connected to previous paragraphs. It's gonna make you more efficient in the long run. You can't digest 3 passages all at once. Nobody can. I can't. I do exactly what I tell you guys to do on these. And when I don't, I start missing questions because I get cocky and I just start reading and I swallow a passage whole and it doesn't work. So definitely stop in every paragraph. Thank you for the comment, Naman. Great. I love this. So many good comments here. Okay. Jerry Prep. This is great. Not in the I'm sorry this is happening to you. I don't mean it like that. I don't mean to be snarky. Just in the sense that this is so common. So many people struggle with this. And again, I'm going to take this for a walk and generalize it to other people that might have related issues that are not exactly the same as yours. Hypnotized by answer choices. Sometimes it's hypnotized by the passage. Sometimes it's paralyzed in general. And, we see so many variants of all of those things. Brings me to number 7, which I think for a lot of you is arguably the most important potential score killer. Some of you this doesn't apply to, a lot of you it does. But when I see people massively underperforming their ability levels, number 7 is probably the most likely thing. And it's focus issues, but very specifically something like anxiety or ADHD, or we'll just say health in general. And I think the habit that a lot of us get into, and again, GRE prep, K8E, this might not be you, I don't know. But this general thought of like, hey, sometimes I hypnotize and paralyze and freeze. Yeah, it happens to a lot of people. And if that's happened in live group, I'm curious to hear, especially since I feel like I know a lot of you guys. Let me know if you're having this sensation. I think some of you already brought it up over the course of this video. We tend to ignore this, right? We think of the GMAT, or the GRE for that matter, or the EA. It's an academic test. I'm going to study stuff. I'm going to learn stuff the way I did in university. And it's like, yeah, but if you can't focus, this test, it's not a knowledge test, it's a reasoning test. It'll eat you alive. And we ignore a lot of these things. I'll start from the bottom. Health in general. Again, I'm not some wellness weirdo here who's going to lecture you about, I don't know, supplements. Hey, take your omega-3s. I don't know, whatever. But look, if you're having a hard time concentrating when you sit down to study, you're probably overworked. You're probably not sleeping enough. Your diet might be bad. You forget to eat. A lot of you guys work too hard. We had a student who cracked his cornea in undergrad because he studied so long and hard and didn't sleep. He cracked his cornea from overstudying. That was an undergrad. I admire the work ethic. I really do. A lot of you guys work way, way, way too hard, and it's gonna backfire on you on this exam. That's the problem. Hard work, good. Hard work, fine. But on the GMAT, you got to take care of your head. So, guys, get your 8 hours of sleep. I know. No one wants to hear it. Oh, this dumbass from GMAT Ninja is lecturing me about sleep. A lot of you work your butts off. You sleep 4, 5, 6 hours a night. You're used to functioning that way. You are not functioning at your peak when it comes to reading this stuff or doing whatever on the GMAT. We see it over and over and over. Pay attention to that stuff. Sometimes the focus comes from that. You forget to eat. You're just used to eating when you have time. Guys, eat. Keep your blood sugar stable. If your blood sugar is not stable, you're going to screw up a lot of GMAT questions and wonder what happened. ADHD. We see a ton of undiagnosed ADHD, especially our international students. US, we have a little bit more of a culture where that's kind of things we think about. We might get tested. But if it's something where you really think systematically you have an issue there, please get tested. You can get testing accommodations, extra time. Don't think of that as an unfair advantage. It's a way of leveling the playing field. We've got some great videos we did with the head of accommodations at GMAC, talking specifically about some of these things: ADHD, dyslexia. We often run into people in their 20s and their 30s, undiagnosed. If you really think there's a deeper focus problem, please look into it. Please get testing accommodations. That extra time is your opportunity to refocus. It levels the playing field, makes things fair. Anxiety is the biggest one. So if you've ever paralyzed on test day, but you tend not to do it in practice, or maybe you're paralyzing on a mock exam, but you tend not to do it when you're just sitting there doing practice questions, odds are very good it's a form of test anxiety. Affects about 70% of GMAT test takers, from what I can tell. I've got a little bit of published research to back me in that general direction. Please pay attention to it, deal with it. I want to share something briefly here. One of our tutors, so Dana, she's amazing. She's smarter than me. You can ask her. She's too humble to agree with me on that, but she's awesome. She's a better reader than I am. She's a better writer than I am. She's phenomenal. She spent 9 minutes, 9, on a single question on reading comp because she paralyzed. She froze up. It was anxiety. And that's a tutor. This is somebody who's, she got like a 790, 780, I forget her exact score. I mean, crazy, crazy talented person. So if you ever freeze up, check out this article. It happens to everybody. It happens to a lot of people. And it kind of goes through her thought process minute by minute as she's just can't make sense of this passage. It happens. And if it does, decent chance you're dealing with anxiety, something like that. I want you to pay attention to these external things. We think it's just study, study, study. For most people, that's not what it's about. It's about getting your brain right, getting your body right. If you were an athlete and you're preparing for, I don't know, a track meet, a soccer match, whatever it might be, you would take care of your health, take care of your body. Think of the GMAT the same way. So you're trying to peak at test day, full health, full focus, pay attention to that external stuff, super important. And again, I'm not some wellness weirdo, not my thing. It's just, it really helps. It really makes a difference. Drew, yeah, man, it's hard. It's hard. And that's the thing. A lot of you, at this stage of your careers, it's long days. It's rough. And prioritize sleep, prioritize good diet, prioritize exercise, have a social life. And there might not be a lot of hours left, but at least those hours will be good hours. Sometimes that's the thing that helps. Great question. And by the way, this is it for the score killers. 7 biggest ones that I think are a little off the beaten path and not just about studying. So if you're tired of hearing me talk, great. I'll talk for 5 more minutes. Record the errors. Yeah, this could mean a lot of things. Here's what I would say. This secret, that sounds a little too gimmicky. The key to doing really well, like if you need to make a really big score improvement on the GMAT or maybe just on verbal, whatever it might be that you're grappling with, it's about understanding you. It's about understanding your own head. And I don't think there's a ton of value in categorizing critical reasoning or reading comp questions because your errors probably have very little to do with the question types. I'm not saying nothing. So again, some people struggle in inferences. That's why it's number 3 on my list. Again, not hierarchical, but just it's one of the 7 that I see the most often. Maybe you struggle with assumption questions. That's pretty normal. Spend some time figuring out how to do those. We've got videos on assumption questions. You could watch those. There's books on them. Whatever, great. But most likely, that's not where errors are coming from. It's how are you reading in a way that undermines your ability to understand what's happening? When are you misreading? When are you lunging at answer choices that are wrong? Why are you doing it? It's much more about understanding yourself, understanding the kinds of errors you make. So your unit of analysis shouldn't really be question type or passage type. Oh, I struggle more on science passages. Interesting. I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but that's psychological, right? I don't know that much about science. I didn't know what was going on with that ideal gas law thing. But you don't need to. That's how GMAT passages are written. You don't need to understand anything specific. So I don't think your unit of analysis should be question type, passage type so much. If you see something obvious, great. Maybe there's something you can learn. But again, 80%-ish of errors that we see over many, many years, many, many students, it's based on something else. It's your process. It's how you're reading. It's how you're thinking. It's your psychology. You're getting intimidated. Sometimes it's this stuff. Sometimes we go, well, wait a minute. This person missed 12 on one set of reading comp and the next day missed 2. What's going on? Bad day? Okay, but why? Why? Not enough sleep? ADHD? Something happened. So you want to drill into that because that's about you. The unit of analysis is you, not the question types, ideally. All right. Hope that helps a little bit. Yeah. So you're overthinking inferences for sure. Think of inferences as, and again, we have a whole video on it in the live series here on GMAT Club. We address it plenty in other videos, both GMAT Ninja and GMAT Club. Awesome. You've overcome fear and comfort in many things. Inferences, you almost certainly are overthinking. Find the one that is supported, the 4 that are not supported. Find the 4 wrong answers, the 4 things that aren't supported. The one you're left with is your answer. It might be something that's very obvious, might be something that's less obvious. That's all it is. So I'd bet anything that you're massively overthinking it. Come back to those basic principles. Might want to check out our critical reasoning video on inferences here on GMAT Club that we did live. Good question, LSAT. Under an hour, you're good for the GMAT. So 60 minutes or less, I'm happy to see that for the GMAT. If you're finishing LSAT sections, again, roughly 25 questions per section. If you're doing them in 60 minutes, you should be able to finish a GMAT verbal reasoning section on time. And again, they're going to be jarring at first. They're hard. They're hard. Yeah, it's the execution, right? So I want you to take care of your body. As you get to that last 7 days, 2 days, whatever time period you want, you want to spend a little bit of time studying, refreshing things that you feel like you need a refresher on. Keep your momentum, keep your mojo. Awesome, great. Do things to help remind yourself of what proper technique looks like and make sure it stays familiar. Don't overdo it. And the most important thing is get sleep. Most of you guys do not sleep enough. I don't sleep enough. I have small children. Make sure you focus on that. Get some exercise, get your brain working. It helps enormously. Tons of studies backing me on that. If you're into mindfulness, meditation, definitely keep that up. I do not enjoy meditation personally. Man, it helps with your test performance. We got studies on that too, academic studies on it. Have a social life. Have a good time a little bit. Don't drink too heavily, but have a good time. I want you to keep your life balanced. I want you to go in relaxed, happy, energized. Study, yes. Sleep well, eat well, take care of your body, take care of your mind. 100% most important things. Think of this test as one that's about execution. It's about focus more than it is about how much stuff you've learned. Swetha, you've been at it for a while. You've learned a lot of stuff. You know enough. You're ready. Just take care of your body and mind so that you're relaxed, ready to focus. Do just enough studying to stay sharp in the next week. And don't overdo it. Okay, that's it. We've hit the hour mark. Thank you so much, everybody. Any of you that have been here live for the whole series, please shoot me a quick message. probably via the GMAT Ninja website. Because I something I'd like to do to thank some of you guys that have been here live throughout the whole series. All right, with that, we will see you next week. GMAT Ninja Wednesdays will continue for until you guys get tired of me. Admissions next week, and we'll start out some podcasts and quants in August. All right, thanks everybody for watching, and have fun studying. Swetha, good luck on your test.